subject is that, okay, so about 3 or 4 years ago, for some inexplicable reason, for having done nothing in my life except nothing, I was invited by the Bas Culinary challenge, and they said, Mr. Anand, can you be our guest at this year's Bas Culinary challenge? So I said, it's very interesting, but what do you want me to speak about? He said, because the next big thing in the world is going to be Indian cuisine. Next big thing. Now, according to Manjeet Gill and Manisha, the next big thing had already happened. They already assumed that we were the big, But the world said that, the prophecy was that either India or Peru would be the next big thing. Now, for some reason, that year, Mr. Varti, when we came back, but the next big thing became Peru, right? So the other day, last couple of months ago, I was spending time with my family in San Francisco, and all the best restaurants on the Strip next to the Marriott Marquis were Peruvian restaurants, all right? And tucked away in a small corner, I think it was on Castro, there was an Indian restaurant by an inventive Indian chef called Tyagi head. And whatever happened to the next big thing? And next year, the Bas people didn't even invite me. So the subject that we have in hand today is that there seems to be an understanding, and I may be wrong, and obviously I'm always wrong, because is India one of the great cuisines of the world, right? Or are we still stuck with the paradigm of French, Italian, Japanese, Thai, and now Peruvian cuisine? Is there something that I forgot? Any other cuisine that's big? Peruvian is very big, right? Okay. So whatever happened to incredible Indian cuisine as an international crossover, right? So there are some points to ponder. The one point to ponder is that Pliny the Elder in the ancient encyclopedia is whining, winging, and crying. And he's saying that in the Roman Empire, he's saying that India takes 10 tons of gold in exchange of 10 tons of pepper, because the Roman emperors only eat Indian cuisine with pepper, the love of pepper. So the argument here is that if we were sending pepper and spices to the Holy Roman Empire, and I suspect the Pope was also having it, then weren't we the first wasn't it the world's first crossover? Right? We weren't eating Roman cuisine then. Were you having, were you having dormice? Have you ever had grilled dormice? You never had grilled dormice, right? But that's what they're having, grilled dormice with pepper. All right. So according to Pliny, and the chef was Apicius. He wrote a cookbook by his own name, all right? Like to see Dr. Bangay, Obi Dr. Bangay, see. But then Pliny, you must have heard of Apicius. And he wrote a cookbook with 500 recipes, out of which 500 recipes, 358 Indian spices. Can you imagine? If you go to Kerala and you go to somebody's wedding in Kerala and the girl, you can't see her face, with only gold. Guess where the gold came from? Can anybody guess? Dr. Saab? The gold came from where? From Rome. Because that's how it is. That's so much of gold, right? Okay. Then, is it because of the Indian diaspora? Is it the Indian diaspora which is sort of depreciating the quality of what is being presented in the US or America or Europe or Japan? I'm not sure. Is it, so did we actually measure up, right? So this is so we'll follow the Oxonian trait, and we'll ask, should we ask Arun to start first? Or Manisha, would you like to start first? Or would you like to fight this out? Why don't you fight
it out? You already give him an edge with House of Ming, so why don't you start?
Okay. because because now that she's been liberated and she's the best chef in the world, I think, yeah. Arun, so
Gender equality,
tell me,
Mr. Anand.
so what are we talking about? There's no abstraction. Our abstraction is I'm very confused. Has India made the cut amongst the great cuisines of the world? All right. And if yes, then how? If yes, how have you contributed? I know that you have a fabulous restaurant in San Francisco where I've been, I've eaten, and I paid through my nose, all right, for which you are forgiven. So points to ponder. Yeah.
All right. So when you actually speak about history, and you already said, there's been an exchange of spice with Rome, and they paid in gold for the amount of pepper that we took. So when you look at Indian food and the way it is actually moved across the globe, we could always say that the Indian art form, or the entire cuisine as we know it, is not something that you can easily replicate until unless you don't know the fine art of making Indian food. And in the previous session, you had the chefs actually speak about why it is actually difficult, because quite often they don't have the ingredients, or they don't have the know-how, or they don't have the correct word with the tenacity to travel the entire distance of actually, like you said, you would have to cook bunao for a few hours, and you don't really have that sort of manpower over there to be able to recreate the same great things that we do here back in India. Coming back to food traveling across, the way the cuisine travels, a lot of it depends on the ingredient, the cooking style, the culture, and what is it that we actually want to take across. India as a whole, I think so, has got multiple cuisines in various parts of India. Okay. So when you look at our food and you look at South of India, North of India, the East, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Calcutta, Bengal, you go into Hyderabad, Lucknow, I don't think there would be so many cuisines coming out of any foreign country so easily. There are. I will not debate right now, that, oh, we've got more. But yes, we do have a lot of things to offer. Okay, that's one. Number two for us is, I think so, when we start specializing in one. So for example, if you take the ITC, they've got multiple brands which they are currently using. And we at the Taj have also got our own brands which we take across. So when we travel and we are actually moving across, say, today we are opening hotels internationally. So what we are currently doing is, we take, for example, a brand which is already here. So for example, we have got Vark, which is currently in Dubai. We've got, the Bombay Brasserie, which started in London, but now it has moved across to our multiple hotels. So when you look at our brands that are traveling, we are traveling with a total playbook, which has got its own recipes, and we are able to replicate these with the knowledge that we have. Similarly, in this very hotel, we have just launched a new Indian restaurant, Loya.
What is it called actually?
It's called Loya.
What does it mean?
So it means a meeting place, and I think so Chef Vadwa should be here somewhere in the audience. Please do come and dine and give us feedback on the same. But the food of this restaurant is primarily from the hills. It's got elements from India. You won't find a typical dal makhni, but you'll find some amount of homely food in there. And
it's not the Afghani word Loya Jigra, is it?
Yes.
So
sorry.
It is Loya Jigra. No, this is Loya is a Sanskrit word.
It's from. I won't be able to tell you whether it's Sanskrit, but at the end of the day, when we looked at the way it comes out, it's primarily a meeting space, or
that's an Afghani word. It's I think a Pashto word.
Correct.
It comes from the word Loya Jigra, which means an assembly of. Sorry. Loya Jigra. Jirga. Okay. Well, there you are. So I'm not so bad.
So there is a brand that we've opened now, and we intend to take it across. So when you look at the way we are structuring our food and the way things are, I think so as a cuisine, it is still maturing, but at the same time, it has got so much history that when we start opening it up, bit by bit, the world is still like, oh, is this really how you make a biryani? Is it so complex? But at the same time, when we guys do it, it's, "Hey, it's very easy." I mean, like you mentioned the way the chef was actually straining out food, or he was straining out his sauces, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is how you actually make food." But when you look at our cuisine and you see the complexities of everything, when we start taking it across, it is difficult, but at the same time, it's amazing. And I think so. We, as custodians of this cuisine, when we take it across, it is amazing, because when I travel internationally and I tell somebody, "Oh, this is not actually a chicken tikka masala, what you're actually eating. There is no dish like this which we know of." They say, really? But this is what I've been eating in for the past so long. And once you start introducing them, for example, we've got Sriram, and in London, and he's been using Culon for so many years. And the way he tells me, "Arun, I make food which is just the way it needs to be." And he's right. And he's got people who actually come in there and they love their food. So every time we put in a new brand, or we put in that effort, I think it's just going to be right there. And that's my piece on this one.
That's clever that when you invent your food and you take it to the market and the person shows ignorance, "But this is not my food." You say, "Where have you been living, man? This is our tradition. How do you think we managed to deal with our brands and ITC hotels? We've been telling you for years, but this is our tradition."
Yeah, it is.
I mean, who will go to this hapless Mughal emperor sitting there, like a relic in Lal Killa, getting bombarded by the British and asking him, "Tusi ahi khaya si?" You know what I mean? So you're right. The mythology and storytelling is an act of contemporary history. All right. And I like this story. When you tell stories and you create food and attribute it to the past, it's a good thing, because there is no verification. All right. And creativity does not require verification. True. Okay, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, of course, has been in the social media over the last 1 month. The whole world is saying, "Dr. Saab, मैंने तो इतना डर भी लग गया थोड़ा जा मैं क्या भी हूँ मैं वेदांता नहीं जाना हूँ डॉक्टर साहब को नहीं चले जाना ठीक है." But anyway, congratulations, Bali Saab. You've done a fantastic job. You've been teaching young people, and so I think your munificence and your patience and let's give them credit for having done a fabulous job with the transformation of the Oberoi Hotel.
Thank you.
I think they were hesitant about Indian food. They were hesitant about Indianness, but I think they've embraced humanity and kindness. And I'm a resident partly of Simla, and I have seen the transformation of your hotel where I live, close by in the Cecil.
Yes.
And I must tell you, the quality of the Cecil Oberoi, where I eat very frequently, and they don't give me a discount, is absolutely first class. So congratulations.
Thank you, Doctor.
I hope I get a discount.
Thank you for your kind words. I'll go back very long into the history to when India was called Aryavrat, and we are a 5,000-year-old civilization. So as a chef, मुझे आज कोई पूछता है ना, I'm always confused about Indian food. I really don't know what is Indian food, because what we know of today as an Indian food, and if I talk about the dal makhni and the chicken butter masala, is only a 50, 60-year-old recipes. But what were those recipes 5,000 years ago when Aryans came into a country and they settled in the northern part of the belt, because वो उसी जगह से हिंदुस्तान में आ सकते थे, because rest of the part was covered with sea and the other part is covered with the Himalayas. So all the things that came into our country were all alien to us. The cauliflower, the brinjals, the courgettes, even the spices like saffron, cardamom, they all came from Persia, Iran, and all these places. So yes, somewhere we lost that real sense of Indian cuisine, which was more medicinal, which was more Ayurvedic. And we were by far the most advanced generations of that time, with Chark Samhita being written, and the Ayurveda being written and all that. But slowly when the Mughals came in and, our chefs got into that greed of cooking for the kings, because kings loved wine, woman, and food. And the chefs there could create that magical food by, putting ingredients inside like saffron, cream, ghee, and creating something for the drunk king to get so happy कि वो अपना हीरे का हार निकाल के chef को दे देता था. And that chef came to be known as Maharaj because in the laborer clan, he was the real king. And he became so greedy that he did not pass on his skills to the next of the generation because he was the blue-eyed boy of the king. So that is, and also they were not educated. So the written scripts of our cuisine, we really lost it. जो भी आज written scripts say were mostly from the Maharanis of the house who were interested to cook, and once in a while they would go into the kitchen. Or, the kings would write about it. And also whatever was written in those languages, we don't even know. If we find the recipe today and we actually look at the ingredients, we won't be able to tell what does this ingredient really mean. So to tell you honestly, we have kind of botched up, our complete food that we call as Indian food. But हम जो भी धरोहर संजो के रख रहे हैं, it is probably last 200, 300 years and 400 years maximum. Because beyond that, we really don't know what was there, what have we lost, what have we gained. I'll talk about a country like Canada. In 1970s, because one of my relatives also, I heard the stories that when they landed up in Canada, the government offered them citizenship there and then. They were not even allowed to come back to the country. So as a result, today people are immigrating and all that, but Canada was so scarce with population that they wouldn't let them go back. They were stamped on their passports, immigrated, and they stayed there. Now, we are talking about this maybe 60, 70 years ago. And 70 years ago, there were not that kind of ingredients that we would eat in the Indian subcontinent. So वहाँ जाके coriander नहीं मिलती थी. There was parsley. Now, whatever use of parsley that you would do, and it's not a replacement for coriander. आज कितनी countries में कड़ी पत्ता नहीं मिलता. You do get the dry version, but still there is fresh curry leaves, which is not available in most of the part of the world. So I think, yes, when that generation went over, they really created that food, which was, and which they wanted to eat, but of course they could not create because there was a lack of ingredients. But when they started getting into the businesses, I think that is where the Indian food lost its, the real soul, I would say, because, getting into the business venture, it's about making money. Cooking at home is about passion, is about your nutrition, is about ghar ka khana, it's about your enjoyment. But when it came to business, people started cooking for the masses who would like that food. So naturally, we started toning down the spices. We started toning down the chilies. And I always wonder that, when you go to a Chinese restaurant, you always have a spicy dish, but there are 3 chilies mentioned on it. But हम क्यों एक foreigner को देख के immediately, we say, अरे masala kam dalna because वो foreigner है.
So what are you saying? You're saying that the master cuisine of Indian homes has not been able to make the transition into commercial establishment.
Yes, because I think somewhere we are scared of our own Indian food.
Again, so what has happened is it's like, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. We are a little tight, so I'll
Yes.
come back to you.
Sure.
Rakesh, who I've known for a very long time, is also an eloquent poet. All right. And apart from the fact that he now heads 500 hotels, kinne?
Yeah, at this moment 110 operating hotels, but yes, 500 will be very soon.
Bol na.
500 will be very
Yeah,
soon,
so
but
let's
at this
give
moment
her-
110.
This is a huge, it's a great task. I mean, Manisha is running about 30, 40 and she gets stressed out. I think she has, we have to give her, some sort of medication. And Rakesh, what is the trick of handling, 150, 160 hotels and with your gift and talent? And we find that all the hotels everywhere seem to give fantastic, consistent cuisine, right? But our subject, as you
We will
know,
remain on the subject. So, yeah, we will come to that point also. I feel that, Indian cuisine is very old. It's very strong. It's a amalgamation of culture, tradition, and influences, which, our ethnic communities have given to us. Now, what recipes we have been seeing from our mother or our grandmother, they were passed on from mother to daughter, and in professional environment, it was passed on from guru to chelas. So there was no recipes which were written down anywhere. But when the tradition of cooking stops at home, or is gradually extinct. People are not cooking at home. Those passing on of recipes, the tradition of cooking at home, now is gradually taking away. That is why today we talk about restoring or reviving the cuisine, because we know we have lost it somewhere. So once we see, like we mentioned, Peruvian cuisine, once we see these countries going ahead of us, though we aspire to be where they are today, but what we are doing and what they are doing is almost very similar. There are few differences here and there, which I think we are going to catch up. It is just a matter of time that we shall be there where what they have achieved already. And there are few things that we also need to do correctly. So we have made a mark. We are now there in the global map. But however, the small things that we need to tweak and do correct, these little baby steps, I think we'll be the leaders very soon.
You're saying that there is a future, right? So I'm going to put you on the map. Okay. So the prognosis was that many years ago we said that India and Peru. So what's the next big thing?
India, of course.
India is the next big. Wonderful. On that very happy note, we come to Manisha. Would you like to introduce yourself once again?
I think Mr. Anand has already done my introduction. My take on how Indian food has got translated overseas is very different. Like earlier mentioned, creativity does not need licensing. And I remember Bali also saying just now that 300, 400 years ago, before that, we don't have any cataloged Indian recipes. So having said that, way back, I roll back to 2004 or 5, when we came up with the healthy cuisine. We tried to research and we really actually didn't find much there. But then, of course, there were home recipes which we interpreted on our plates. We created food which I was told to think Western and cook Indian by Mr. Anand himself. And that kind of opened my mindset. So I think it's important for us to keep the authenticity of the ingredient alive, authenticity of the preparation there. Like earlier session, Vineet also mentioned the same thing. At the same time, keep the innovativeness. What is happening overseas is very interesting now. I have seen the change happening in last 5 years. Earlier, one would go out and one would see, typically at the cost of repeating my others, a chicken tikka masala or butter chicken or naan. But today you see a lot of interesting regional cuisine coming forward, whether it is the South Indian, whether it is Maharashtrian, whether it is East Indian cuisine or food from the Far East. So it's interesting to see how the food is unfolding overseas also. We must give credit to the chefs, Indian chefs who are carrying this flag overseas. They are creating awareness. Today, if you ask a foreigner of any nationality, he knows that Indian food exists beyond this North Indian butter chicken and stuff like that. He has much more awareness of our other food as well. But the interesting thing is, if I look at Italy as a country on a whole, there is very subtle differences across the region. Whereas when you look at India, they're so distinct from each other when I go to South or the East or any part of the country. I think that is where it's important for us to showcase not only overseas, but in India too. If we look at our own, backyard, I don't know how many of our people we interact with, not from the hospitality, they are aware that there is food beyond what is most popular existing within our country. So it's important to respect that. And I think cuisine diplomacy is very important. Prime Minister has to call the 2023 as a year of millet. So the whole world is talking about it. And millets, actually, we have a great bank of millets in our country. So it's a great way to move forward and showcase our Indian food overseas.
Okay, so there is some hope. I'm going to go back for a very quickie. Now, this is a quickie, not in the metaphorical sense, but in the literal sense. Anand, Dr. Saab, the mind of But so the question is, no, not that quickie. This is different. So I think Loya is I think it's a great idea. I think congratulations on that. So what do you think is good? What is your favorite restaurant to go, right? And I'm not talking about your brands, I'm talking about if you were to go internationally and nationally, right? Indian restaurant. Because remember, the next big thing is
Indian food.
Absolutely. What is the next big thing? Indian.
So if at all I have to dine locally, then for me, I'm basically a Bombay boy. So for me, I would still go back and eat at something like Trishna, which is a seafood restaurant where they are grinding coconut. It's something which I like because number one, I'm from south of India. Internationally, if I have to go to an Indian restaurant, that's a question, right?
Yeah. What is the next big thing?
Okay. So for me, primarily,
If you say Peruvian restaurant, will murder you right now.
no, I got a big list of what all I want to do. But for me, Indian food internationally, I think so the entire panel who sits here will never go to an Indian restaurant to eat food internationally unless your bosses have said that go there and eat that food. And that has happened to me quite often. So I would say for me, it would be a Bombay brasserie because I've been always told to go there and eat.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something where I normally eat internationally, is what I would say.
So Bombay brasserie.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Saab?
So abroad, I've eaten, I think at Banaras, which is great, and even Cinnamon Club.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
Excellent.
which
All right.
did a fantastic job.
Any particular reason?
One, of course, both were owned by my friends, my batchmates.
So you'll be coming back to that billing cycle.
That was Vivek, but yeah, it was to experience
Eventually, it all comes back to who's paying the bill or are we paying or not paying, but that's not the point.
No, but it was about a degustation menu.
Fair enough,
Like
fair enough, yeah.
12 courses, and which was very nicely done.
And I think, so I just want to come in. See, the instances of, I think we have low self-esteem. I think the Indian psyche has low self-esteem. So when you, and I see a lot of Indian brands doing well here, but you were probably lawyers, probably the only other brand that's appeared in a structured market. I mean, if you ask around the public here and say that when was the last time they went to an Indian freestanding restaurant anywhere in the national capital region, right? And I'm not sure that there are too many, right? Okay, but there are lots of Japanese restaurants, there are lots of Korean restaurants, there are lots of fast food restaurants, very few Indian restaurants. Anyway, so I completely agree with you that you would go for. You said what was our discussion? In India, where would you go?
So again, like you said, India, I don't find any one restaurant like a freestanding restaurant. So it becomes a family thing, and the family decides.
Okay.
And mostly you go along with either having a South Indian.
So what you're also obliquely saying is that you'd rather go to a place in India where they don't give you a bill, and because you go to a family restaurant, they don't give you.
No,
a
I
bill.
think it's a family time. We rather cook at home.
Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Yeah. Yes, Chief. So see, apart from the 150 restaurants that you run, where would you actually go and pay a bill of an Indian restaurant?
So, when it comes
Domestically and internationally.
So internationally, I'll tell you that, in the past, I was traveling a lot for my TV shows, and I got an opportunity to dine in some great restaurant, especially in UK. And one I remember still is the Tamarind that I went there, and I really loved the food, the way they had showcased the Indian spices and herbs into their menus. That was very, very nicely done. When it comes to India, we normally are into hotels, and we often go to all the top hotels, restaurants, especially the one in ITC that we love to go. But when it comes to going along with the family, people, the day we go out is the day when we want to eat something light and healthy. So my personal preference always remain as South Indian restaurants when I go outside. So that is how we decide, what is the mood of the day or what is occasion. And then we take a call and go outside.
So are you saying that the biggest crossover within India has been South Indian tiffin? Is that what you're saying? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can say that.
Bali,
Yes.
Dr. Saab?
I think there are more than 39 Sarvana Bhavans in the world.
Yeah, I think so.
And we have more than 40 McDonald's in Delhi itself.
So you're saying that the South Indian tiffin has been
So
the
we
biggest.
haven't been able to create a brand that people associate Indian food with abroad. And I think that is where we have a strength here to do something like that and put India on the global map.
So Rakesh, I'm going to put you on the mat when you want to, and you're saying, so therefore you're qualifying that you hesitate to go to an Indian restaurant because you find that it's distressfully heavy and you prefer going to a South Indian different restaurant because you find it lighter. Is there a particular brand that you go to? And we're not, I'm not charging any money from anybody to,
No, it is not about the brand. It is, as I mentioned, it is about the time that we have on hand. If it is less time, we go nearby also. There is another brand which is just cropping up into the market, Juggernaut, if you have heard about that. They have an amazing South Indian food and good variety of food and very traditionally presented.
So Arun would object because when you say South Indian, then they get very upset, right? And for good reason. I worked 10 years of my life, 5 years in Chennai and 5 years in Hyderabad, and I've learned to be less parochial, okay? And I would also get upset when somebody told me, so you work in South India? I said, no, I worked in those days Andhra Pradesh or I worked in Tamil Nadu, right? And now it's become worse because now you have Telangana and you have Andhra Pradesh, and then the Pondicherry reared its head. So we did a restaurant in Chennai where we had the Penta flavors. So now they're objecting because the Penta has now become 6 flavors because Andhra Pradesh and Telangana have become 2 distinct states. Okay. So what is your thought on this? Now they are saying that, for instance, I was reading somebody's YouTube. That nice gentleman from Bangalore, I can't remember his name. And he was, there is a Gautam street, and there's food that is coming from sub-communities, which is doing very well within even Karnataka.
So for anyone who's, as you say, from the south of India, we're very, very touchy. Oh, you're South Indian Madrasi. No, it doesn't work like that anymore. But quite a few now people are very sensitive about where they are from. So take for example Kerala. Okay, there is Syrian Christian food, there is the Mapla Muslim, and then there is the Nambiar food. So that itself is 3 directions. Now, if you go into Andhra, okay, you've got various spices.
Sure.
And if you talk about spice levels there and you try putting 3 chilies, that will not be enough. You need the full page to just put chilies because their food can be that spicy. Similarly, if you go into Tamil Nadu, there are so many, types of food that you will get that you will be surprised. So when we did a lot of research for Southern Spice, we'd gone into houses, we've, had people cook and we've had aunties cook and all that. And then when we come back and we've said, now what do we do? There are so many restaurants that are there.
Yeah.
So when they are talking about a tiffin restaurant, it's primarily something which is steamed and you got an idli and you're happy. But when you talk about the diversity aspect, there is so much more.
I agree with you. Okay, I think Bhuvnesh Chatha is now looking at me and saying that I am no longer Boris Johnson. But Manisha, who has to have the last word. Manisha, by her own mission, has broken all the glass ceilings. She's now flying in the sky and she's high. So please give us the last word.
For me, within India, again, I'll go with Mahesh Tiffin in Bombay, Mumbai. That's my favorite to go to. Like we said that outside the hotels, they're not, one doesn't go to an Indian restaurant per se, North Indian restaurant. Overseas, it would definitely be Banaras. And there is a restaurant in San Francisco called Coriander Leaf.
Oh, that's the one.
Coriander Leaf. It's run by a batchmate of mine, again free meal. So
what's the name? Chef Tyagi? It's on the main Jones Street.
Yeah, it's on the main Jones Street. So that's my favorite. These 2 are my favorite. But recently I was also at Nashville, where Manish Chauhan is also running an interesting restaurant on Indian food. So there's a lot of progress being done on that front. So these 3 are my favorites so far. But it's a moving picture every time you go.
Okay, so on that, now that Bhuvnesh, we have, are we over? Is Boris Johnson gone? Okay, so on that, excuse me? Rishi's come. Okay, then it's time for me to go. Okay, but because it's Valentine's and the whole world is talking about Valentine's, I'm reminded. And I just want to remind you, what is the next big thing?
The Indian food.
Can you all say it together? India. Okay. So Fairs. Now I just remember Fairs. And yes, Fairs, born on the eve of Valentine's Day, implores us to put everything at stake at the game of love. We should put everything in the game of India. And he says, Garbazi ishq ki bazi hai, jo chaho laga do dar kaisa. Garbazi ishq ki bazi hai, jo chaho laga do dar kaisa. Gar jeet gaye to kya kehne. Gar jeet gaye to kya kehne. Hare bhi to bazi mat nahi. So, with all the best wishes to all of you, and this is to India.
No, because we are doing everything correct, and we all agree that India is the next big culinary destination. So it is just matter of changing our thought direction, just as the Peruvians have done in the past. So I also have got a couplet to say. So मेरा ये मानना है कि सोच को बदल दो तो सितारा बदल जाता है, सोच को बदल दो तो सितारा बदल जाता है, नजर को बदल दो तो नजारा बदल जाता है, कश्ती बदलने की जरूरत नहीं है, बस दिशा को बदल दो तो किनारा बदल जाता है.
Thank you.